Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and I'm here with Barrie Gower, a special makeup effects designer for Stranger Things season 4. And Barrie, you had not actually worked on Stranger Things prior to season 4. And I'm wondering, what is it like kind of coming into a pre-established world with people who have already been there? How does that affect your process?
Well, firstly, it was super exciting to get the call to join Stranger Things. We were huge. Well, my family, my wife Sarah and I, we run our company together. We have a 10-year-old daughter, Lottie, as well, who is a mega Stranger Things fan. So she's seen seasons 1 to 3, maybe 5, 6 times now, something. So when we got the call for Stranger Things, I think Lottie was probably more excited than all of us. But we got approached back in 2019, and it was through one of the producers, Ian Patterson, and the Duffers, and they approached us as they were after a creature effect shop to design their new villain, Vecna. For the season, and I think that Matt and Ross were fans of our work on Game of Thrones, our character the Night King we did for Game of Thrones, and also they were big fans of our work on the HBO show Chernobyl, all the radiation burns. So I think going into season 4, they knew they had this character, this villain, and I think they were looking to have their own iconic villain that would be now setting the stage for season 4 and for the Stranger Things franchise. So I think they were kind of like, we would love to have our own Night King in a way. So I think they were thinking, well, why don't we just contact the guys who made the Night King? So that's kind of how we got the call. But I think joining a franchise this late, as in season 4, is always quite a daunting thing, but it's something we did similar on Game of Thrones. We joined Game of Thrones on season 4. We did the last 5 seasons. But what was really exciting and really rewarding for us was that Sarah and I were looking for that family feel again with a big show and all the departments. And it was just evident as soon as we got the call for Stranger Things, started speaking to the Duffers and all the department heads. And then when we came across to Atlanta to start the shoot, we just stepped into the production office and it was just like this well-oiled machine. Everybody knew everybody very well. There was a shorthand. It was a really happy family. And we were so well, it was a really overwhelming welcome. So we were really, really happy to join the Stranger Things family.
Maybe 4 is a good omen for you in terms of numbers, because Game of Thrones season 4 was, it was certainly a great collaboration there. So equally great here. Well, let's dive into Vecna, because that's obviously a huge focus for you, and it's an incredible piece of work. What was it like? Because when I think of Stranger Things, I think this is the first time we've had a villain from the Upside Down who takes a humanoid form. So how did you kind of work with those 2 elements to create the design?
Well, when we joined the show, the scripts were written, the storyline was already written, and that we were given concept art from Michael Mayer, who was the VFX supervisor as well, and he did this incredible artwork for Vecna. And as you say, it was humanoid in shape and form. And I think the Duffers were very keen to have a new character and villain, nemesis as such, for Stranger Things, which would be predominantly practical, and it would be something that could be portrayed on the film, on the actual set, and could interact with the cast. So we had conversations quite early on with the visual effects department, who we just worked in tandem with. We got given that original design. It was a very sleek humanoid character in form, and it's something that we modeled the sculpture over a cast of the actor, and worked closely with VFX, as there were maybe a couple of little nuances and compromises we had to make here because we had to fit it over a human. But we were always made aware quite early on that it would be a collaboration between ourselves and digital effects. But they made it very clear that he would predominantly be a practical character. So, I think, what you see on the screen is about 90% practical, and then he's very subtly augmented with like moving vines, and they removed his nose, they removed the pupils of his eyes, but they were always very considerate to our work. So from our point of view, we're over the moon with the finished product. We really are.
Yeah, it's quite terrifying watching those tendrils. The tendrils seem like they're sort of the only elements there then of visual effects. Did it take a long time to figure out what the balance was? And, were there lots of different versions you went through?
I think originally they always spoke of we would be augmenting the vines, so there would be subtle movement there, but it wouldn't necessarily be changing his form too much. But it was to animate the textures and the finish to the prosthetics. I mean, one of the things we spoke about quite early on, which was always a bit of a question mark, was Vecna's large left hand. And there is this, I know that there are kind of nods to Nightmare on Elm Street, and I mean the whole season 4 has got this incredible Nightmare on Elm Street sort of vibe to it. So I think that there were concerns originally of how we could achieve that practically, and I think the end result again is a combination of practical and digital effects. But we made a mechanical glove for the actor's left hand, which had extended aluminium fingers with knuckles on, which when the performer moved his own fingers, they actually moved in tandem correctly with his fingers, so he could augment them very well. And the design of the hand was actually, the fingers were actually an awful lot longer originally than what you see in the finished show. So they were probably about maybe 6 to 8 inches longer than what Vecna has in the show. So up until about 2 weeks before we did his final makeup test, Vecna had these super long fingers. And then they decided, I think the practicality of on the day when Vecna was going to be piercing the skulls of his victims, we did a few tests of that back at our studio in the UK, and it was starting to look a little bit clumsy and a little odd. So the guys were like, can we rein this in a little bit? So we reduced the fingers by maybe about 6 inches. And we took like a clay press from the original mold, and one of our fantastic sculptors, Pat Fode, remodeled the hand so everything was a little bit smaller. We had a new mechanical hand built by a chap called Adam Keenan, who's a great animatronics guy. And it was literally up to the wire. We did the first makeup test November 2020 in Atlanta, and they went with the hand. So, but what you see in the show, there are a few. There's a digital hand there for scenes where he's penetrating the skull, and that they've done a few nuances and pulled fingers in here and there. And then there's some scenes I've clocked which are just our practical hands. So it's been a really good marriage.
Were you ever able to be on set while they're shooting to see like what the actor's actual reaction was to this practical being?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was a really good experience being on set, because we were watching the monitors, and every shot we did for each different episode, they were just beating an iconic shot from the previous sequence we'd just shot, and all the way through. Duncan Jarman, who was the sort of co-head of the department with myself, we were just in awe of these shots on the monitor, and we were thinking, this is incredible. I mean, beautiful shots. But what was quite interesting is that there are a couple of sequences, one in episode 4 with Sadie Sink, and one later in the series with another cast member, which I think Vecna, it was the first time that they'd been privy to seeing Vecna in his makeup. And so the reaction you see on screen is genuine. And I think some of the stuff we shot with Sadie when it was in the mind layer, I think the first time she sees Vecna was the first time she actually saw the actor in the makeup. So that terror on her face is, I think they used one of the first takes. So that was really rewarding, because I think to step on a film set with the practical makeup, and it was head to toe, these prosthetics were, it was about 24, 25 appliances we glued over the actor's body. So, and it started off as an 8-hour application. We chipped it down to about 6 hours 21 was our record, I think, with the application time in the end. And it was a team of 4 of us. It was most notably myself, Duncan Jarman, Mike McCash, Eric Garcia, and there was a guy called Nix Herrera who joined us towards the end of the shoot. And it was just like an orchestrated dance we used to do with the application each day, to the point where we managed to fine tune it to like 6 hours 20 minutes. but just to step on set and we would get gasps from other crew members or the cast it was so rewarding. And I think that's kind of the point where you realize you've ticked all the boxes of them.
Yeah, I remember we talked previously during your run for No Time to Die, and you were all saying that you kind of were competing to get the time in the chair, the application process down. What did you have a similar contest like this to see how fast you could do it?
Absolutely. Every day we used to time ourselves, and we used to have like this kind of Wally's guide. We wrote down all the different stages of the makeup application and how long it took us the previous day. So we knew at what time we had to, got to get the ball cap on in so many minutes, got to get the headpiece on, got to get this on. And also, I mean, the application itself, we'd start off in the chair, then we'd stand Jamie up, and then we'd put him on his front, glue his back on, turn him on his back, put his front on, put his arms on, put his left arm on, put his legs on. And it was just such it was like a marathon every day. It was like a really extreme process. And it got to the point where we couldn't do it any quicker because all his appliances were pre-painted to the hilt. So we spent 5 hours literally gluing all this stuff onto him. And then we would have an hour and a half to 2 hours just airbrushing and joining all the dots together and just making the paint job seamless. So, but it literally got to the point where we were so quick, bam, 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 gluing this on. I mean, the thing is, Jamie, after so many days, the actor, he was in such good coordination with us. He knew where he had to put his arms up, he knew where he had to turn his head and, oh, I'm lying down now, and then flip it back over. So I don't think we could have chiseled any more time off the application in the end.
And so it sounds like it's not just kind of a body suit on the body. There's a lot of moving parts there that you have to put on.
It's all prosthetic appliances. It's a combination of silicone appliances that we had for all the head, the shoulders, his chest, his back, his right arm. And then his left arm is quite chunky and meaty in form. So we had a foam latex arm, a foam latex glove that slipped over his mechanical hand, and all his leg appliances were foam latex as well. And there were latex shoes. And then we obviously need to take into consideration with things like Jamie had to go to the toilet during the day. So we had a special kind of built-in undercarriage that we could pop from behind and open up so he could go to the loo, come back, and we'd dress him back together. So even after that whole application process, we'd then get down onto set and he'd have like a little easy up tent next to the set. And the last part of the process would be the four of us would spend about 10-15 minutes glossing him up. And we would use, was essentially like a lube, which we would cover him head to toe and make him shiny and glossy and sticky. So he looked really damp. And we always used to laugh because at that point we would be wearing rubber gloves, putting all this stuff all over him. And then we would always love it that a cast member or a producer or somebody from the show would step in and shake his hand or pat him on the back, and they'd regret it immediately because they'd be just covered in slime. So it was a lengthy process. And as I say, it was fine-tuned to about six and a half hours in the end. And it was an incredible experience with him. It really was.
Well, it's an incredible creation. I wanted to ask, because you have all these types of incredible prosthetic creations, and they oftentimes come with shows that have these feverish fan bases, like Game of Thrones certainly had people theorizing. Forever has a huge fan base. Did you feel the same thing for this? Were you in tune to any of that online with people trying to figure out secrets of Vecna?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any franchise of this sort of scale is that there's an awful lot of hearsay online, and I think throughout the filming as well of the show of season 4, we had to be very careful, and we would read a few things online with a lot of people, assuming where the show was going to go. And I think a lot of it has also been the anticipation as well, because, we started this, it was like 2020, we started this, 2019, we got the call actually. And then 2020, we live cast the actor. We didn't start shooting till the end of 2020, and it was during COVID. and we didn't finish filming till July last year. So it's almost 12 months ago, but we started almost 2 years ago on the show. So the anticipation from starting the show up until now, knowing this secret about this character, and then the teaser trailer dropped and Vecna was in the trailer, and then there was all this talk online of who it's going to be. It's like, oh, I think it's so and so, and I think, and all along thinking it's really interesting. I mean, I think for us, we are super, super proud of this work, and the team of artists who worked on Vecna. It was a big team, and I think for us, it's the anticipation of seeing how well received he's going to be, because we're super proud about the work. And we've been super grateful to become part of the Stranger Things family, and we just hope that he's going to be received very well by the public.
Yeah, well, I think it's safe to say he will. And you're going to have to deal with more anticipation for your upcoming projects, because you're going back to Game of Thrones with House of the Dragon, and then with The Last of Us. I'm very excited for, because that's my personal favorite video game of all time. So I'm very excited for your work. Is that kind of a realm you like living in with these series?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, I think with The Last of Us, it's something I stalked the show's creator, Craig Mazin, for about 12 months, because I heard rumors he was doing the show, and we're just a big fan of that game franchise, and the creature design in that is so strong, you know, from Neil Druckmann, who designed the game. And it's there's been some incredible, exciting things to do on that show, which obviously I can't talk about, but it'll be interesting to see how the response to that when that comes out in the next 12 months or so.
Yeah. Well, before I let you go, you know, looking at your body of work, you have all of these great signature characters. Now we have Vecna, the Night King, the Green Knight was incredible. And what kind of, when you were first starting out, what led you down this path of this type of prosthetic makeup? Because there's a whole bunch of makeup effects one could do. What was it about this type of work that grabbed you?
Well, I mean, as a child, I grew up sort of in the 80s. I was a big fan of monster movies. I was a huge fan of like American Werewolf in London and John Carpenter's The Thing. So I was a big fan of Rick Baker's work, Rob Bottin, Greg Canham, Dick Smith, of course. And I always wanted to be a monster maker. It's like growing up, that was my childhood dream. But I went to art school, and coming towards the end of art school, I wasn't really sure what career to pursue, and then found a course that did special effects makeup in London. And then was lucky enough to meet industry professionals on that, and went on to work at the BBC, and then it's a tiny little community in London. So went to work for all the different makeup effects companies. And then we were fortunate, Sarah and I, we started our own company about 2010. And our first big gig was Game of Thrones, say joining on season 4. And we've just been super lucky, because to be given that opportunity was a great foundation for our company, BGFX. And then since then, as you say, I mean, we were lucky to do like the No Time to Die and The Green Knight, and we worked with Edgar Wright on Last Night in Soho. But we've been very, very fortunate to jump on shows like Stranger Things, and then to continue with House of the Dragon and The Last of Us. So, but I think the stars have just aligned, and we've just been very lucky to be able to be part of the design process for a lot of these characters.
Well, thank you for discussing them with me. Thank you for putting a new source of nightmare fuel into the world that I think will persist for quite a long time with Vecna. It's been great discussing that. Everyone who's out there watching, subscribe to Gold Derby. Keep in touch with us throughout this season. Barrie, thanks again.
Thanks a lot, Sam. Thank you.